Welcome to Drobotics. Today we're going to talk about filters. Filters are, going back to the analogy of a sound designer being similar to a sculptor, filters are like the chisel to a sculptor. So while a sculptor takes a chisel and is able to cut out different parts of their medium, whether it be marble or wood, they can take that chisel and they can cut things down to the size and shape they want them. Just like a sound designer would use a filter to cut out different frequencies to get the sound that they want. So, in order to show you what the filter is, I'm going to need a sound source. And here I'm going to use a saw wave because a saw wave is very rich because it has a lot of partials. And the filter is going to help us cut out a lot of those partials. So I'm really just going to show the saw wave. You're going to have a similar effect with the square, the pulse, not really with the sine, but I'll show you why. So here we go. When you look at the filter, you're really going to see two knobs mainly. You're going to see the cutoff and you're going to see the resonance. The cutoff is the frequency at where you're cutting different partials off at. The resonance is the emphasis of that cutoff frequency level. So let's see what the cutoff looks like. So as you saw there, the cutoff frequency was shaving out a lot of those partials that you saw here and really cutting it down to where it was just the fundamental frequency. And if you remember from the last tutorial, when all you see is really just a fundamental frequency, that's kind of like a sine wave. Well, that's kind of what the filter does. It chops down waves to the point where it almost looks like a sine wave. And that's why it's subtractive synthesis. You start with an oscillator that's a full sound source, and you chop out of that full sound source with the filter. And then you got the resonance. The resonance is the emphasis of where those frequencies are being cut off. Let's show you what that looks like. Let's tweak up that resonance. Wow, so when you tweak up the resonance a lot, you get a really squealing sound. So keep that in mind. If you ever have like a squealing, annoying sound, might be because your resonance is too high or because you have some modulation that's turning your resonance too high. Now, what's important to note is that this right here is called an open filter. This is really the default setting that you have your low-pass filter at. So the cutoff is all the way up, or what we'd normally see is all the way up, and then your resonance is all the way down. So you're saying, I want all of the frequencies to pass through, and I want no emphasis on that cutoff frequency. So that's going to be a clear sound. It's really just going to be the sound of your oscillator coming through. So this is your default. Now, there are different kinds of filters. And so let's switch over and I'll show you what one of these other filters does and how it affects the sound. So this stands for a high-pass filter. High-pass filter is called a high-pass filter because it lets the high frequencies pass through. Just like a low-pass filter lets the low frequencies pass through. So a high-pass filter, let's see what that looks like. That sounded weird, right? No frequency, or very little frequencies were passing through. The reason is because an open filter for a high-pass filter looks different, because you're telling the frequencies, I want, what you have to do is you have to change the cutoff so that it's down to the lower frequencies, because you want all the low frequencies to pass through. So let's see what that sounds like. There we go. Alright, so I showed you something interesting there. I turned up the resonance, and then I put the cutoff frequency at a very low frequency to show you something very particular that I wanted to show you. When you think high pass filter, you're thinking you just want high frequencies to pass through. But don't forget, the resonance helps you add a little flavor to it. You can really boost whatever frequency you want. It doesn't have to be a high frequency. And just there at the end, I was showing you how you can tweak up the resonance and have the cutoff at a lower frequency, and that'll help you really get some bassy sounds. So you can actually have bass sound with a high pass filter. So that's something to keep in mind. Another type of filter you might run into is a bandpass filter. A bandpass filter cuts off the high frequencies and the low frequencies, so that all you have is the middle frequencies. Let's see what that sounds like. Alright, so that was interesting. That kind of gives a really nasally sound. So it really helps you focus your sound. If you have two filters, you can have a band pass filter, and then you can have a low pass or a high pass, and that'll really help you kind of scope out which frequencies you want to focus on. Next, we're going to talk about the this 4-pole low pass filter. What exactly does this mean? That's kind of a misnomer right here, because a 4-pole is a 24 dB filter. A 2-pole is a 12 dB filter. So what this is, it's the slope of how hard your cutoff is going to cut off the frequencies. So a 24 dB filter is going to cut off a strong slope, so it's really not going to let a lot of partials through. I'm going to turn the cutoff down and play it, and then I'll switch to the 12 dB filter, which will let a little more partials come through. Alright, so you notice how that can kind of allow you to change the characteristics of the sound and decide whether or not you want it to harshly cut off frequencies or if you want it to lightly cut off frequencies. Now mainly I pointed out the 24 and the 12 dB filter because those are kind of classic filters. I've got to raise my hands higher. Classic filters. Because the 24 dB filter is similar to that of a Moog filter, and then a 12 dB filter is similar to that of an Oberheim filter. And so these filters, keep in mind, there's never a wrong answer, and there's never, in my opinion, one that's better than another. It's just different characteristics. And keep that in mind when you design your sounds, because I don't want you to become music snobs. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also don't forget to check out my website, drobotics.wordpress.com, and leave any comments. I love hearing comments. So until next time, where we talk about modulation. Till then, take care.